So last month I was offered $10,000 to work with a generative AI company, and the project was essentially me showing and promoting how this product can replace me as a photographer. That's essentially what the scope of work was. So obviously I said no, but it got me thinking, one, it's time to take more measures to protect myself as a photographer, and today I want to share those with you, and I also want to share my thoughts on AI and where I stand on this technology that has a lot of potential pitfalls for creators like you and me. So let's get into it, and big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. Now, this video is going to be a little bit more podcast style. I don't think it's necessary to put a bunch of graphics and things on the screen. So if you want to put on headphones, edit some photos, go on a walk, browse the internet, feel free to. You're just going to hear me talk today. Now, my stance on AI is nuanced. I believe in almost everything in life there are gray areas. Not everything is black and white. So for me, I view AI as a potentially very powerful tool for creators and humanity. There are a lot of uses for AI that I think are beneficial. They can remove a lot of the minutia and admin work out of day-to-day life, creation, and being a business owner. For example, things like website browsers that have AI agents, or just building your own AI agent to handle tasks for you. I think that's really cool, and there's a lot of potential use for that in the future. AI tools for photographers that help you cull through images, find particular images, figure out who's in certain photos and batch them up. That stuff is great. Things like denoise that allow you in Lightroom to remove noise from your photo and get rid of some equipment limitations, that's great. Even something like today's sponsor, Squarespace, who helps you build a website with AI because they already have the templates and they can help you customize them, that is going to save you time. That's a great use case for AI. And when I was considering working with the particular company that approached me, the idea I had was actually to show how AI could help me renovate this office. I want to mix up this set a little bit, but to be honest, it's a little bit overwhelming, and AI is a great way for me to see what changes to this office could look like. They could look good, look bad. All I would do is take a picture of this scene, plug it in, and I could say, hey, what would it look like if this picture over here or over here was a different photo? What would it look like if the walls were different? What would it look like if there was different furniture? This can be great for vision boarding, for creating pitch decks, for designing an idea and seeing if the idea would work. There's so many practical applications for AI. The issue is it's not being used for that. Now, I'm re-recording this section of the video because I want to make my point crystal clear. At the time I'm recording this, the main issue with generative AI models is that generative AI models do not take into consideration intellectual property and ownership of the inputs that are being used to create these generative outputs. And this goes for all creative mediums. Generative AI that makes music, generative AI that makes videography, generative AI that makes photography, graphic design, creative storytelling, fake paintings, whatever it is. Generative AI right now is being marketed as something that does not take intellectual property of the original creator into consideration, and that is where I draw the line. When I talked about paying for certain AI services that I find ethical, if you make a photograph and you say, I want this photograph to be foggy, and you pay for an AI service that allows you to go through a number of different foggy overlays and you can pick one, you have ownership over the inputs you are using to create that final image. You own the photo you made, and you are paying for a subscription to an AI service that helps you add fog to your photo using assets that they also own. So the ownership there is clear. When you go to an AI model and you simply say, create a photograph of Tokyo where it's snowing, AI is going to grab inputs from all over the internet. It might grab a Tokyo reference from one photographer, a Tokyo reference from another photographer, a snow reference from one photographer, a snow reference from a graphic designer, put it all together into something that technically was built by humans, and no one is getting the credit or being compensated for their addition to this final output. Use music as a prime example of this. In the music industry, if you hear a song that you like and when you sample that song, legally, you need to give publishing to the person you sampled. You need to clear that sample because even though you made a brand new song, you used a component of an original creator's original work to make that new thing. That rule and that guardrail is ignored currently in the AI models that we have. And to make it worse, these AI models are being promoted as something that takes no consideration over the human element necessary to make these models work. So in the future, I would love to see more regulation over AI. I believe that creators and artists, whatever medium you're in, need to be compensated and protected if their intellectual property is used by a model to create something new, or they need to figure out a way to make AI think for itself and have a brain so it can get inspired and go out and create actually original ideas. If that happens, I'll just throw my hands up and say, hey, I lost to the robot. But for now, I do not agree with my intellectual property potentially being used in an AI model without my permission. So where I draw the line is ownership of inputs. If you're using AI and you have control over everything you're using to create something, by all means, go for it. But if you are pulling inputs from somewhere or someone that you don't know and you don't have permission to use, that's a problem. So for me, there are a few things that I'm doing to try to work around this. There's a few things I'm doing to try to negate the negative impact of all this, which we'll talk about in a second when we get back to the original recorded video. But before I do that, I want to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. One thing we're going to talk about in a second is leaning more into physical mediums and bringing back the commodity of things like prints and photo books. And if you're someone who does that, you're going to need a place to host these products, and no one makes it easier than Squarespace. Squarespace is who I use for evanramf.com. I've used them for years because they allow me to sell my photo books, my prints. They also allow me to sell things like presets, and with their drag and drop templates that everyone knows how easy they are, it's so simple to build a website and take advantage of these tools. And on top of that, I did mention how Squarespace has AI tools that I consider to be an ethical use of the technology. Squarespace owns the templates that these AI tools are building off of, so you can create a website faster using prompts. And on top of that, Squarespace has great tools like email marketing, so you can get your audience off social media and connect with them directly. They have Squarespace payments that allow you to accept payments without a third-party payment processor. Squarespace is just an all-in-one stop for creative business, and it's going to be more important than ever to have your business dialed in if AI continues to progress the way it is. So if you want to check out Squarespace for yourself, go to squarespace.com/EvanRamp to start a free trial, test out everything, and when you're ready to sign up, use code EvanRamp to save 10%. That's squarespace.com/EvanRamp to start a free trial and use code EvanRamp to save 10% at checkout when you sign up for Squarespace. Big shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Now, a few things that I'm doing to try and push back against AI and protect myself and my photography career as well as the art that I'm making is one, looking into cameras with camera credentials. Now, camera credentials are something that was introduced a couple years ago. I believe Leica was the first camera to do this, but since then, I think Nikon has had some firmware updates that allow it on certain cameras, and I believe Sony has done the same thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple years you see this on every digital camera. But essentially how this works is when you make a photo with cameras with a camera credential thing built into it, you have the ability to have a digital signature and specific IP built into the data of the photo you're creating. It's like a digital tag that can't be deleted. Now, this is important because let's say you go to Tokyo and make a bunch of photos, and one day you see an ad campaign that features an image of Tokyo that you swear is yours, but it was turned into fall and looks moody, and you're like, hey, that could be mine. You now have the potential to validate that that is a part of your image used in this AI generated image because the metadata has your tag in it. Now, I'm not an expert on how all that works, and this is technology that's only going to protect you in major situations like that. If Billy down the street uses a generative AI to create something and your photo happens to be in it, I mean, what are you really going to do? Like, the photo is still going to be out there, but this is technology that I think as it progresses could protect more photographers in the future. Now, the second thing I'm focusing on is documenting the humanity behind my art, basically trying to show that a human is making these things and build a connection between artist and audience, because at the end of the day, people fall in love with artists first and then the art second. So I'm really trying to cultivate that and focus on it. I did an Instagram reel where I showed how I created a flat lay, and I got a couple comments of people saying, hey, I'm glad you didn't use AI. I appreciate this being made by a person. So there's definitely an audience and group of people out there who want to see people actually making things. So by you documenting what you're doing, that's a potential way for you to show that, hey, this is a person, there's a real creative process here, and in time that could boost the value of what you're making. Now, I know what some people are going to say. They don't want to go out and make videos, they don't want to do Instagram reels, they don't want to TikTok. I get it, but we got to face the reality of things a little bit. It's important to build somewhat of a brand around what you're doing and share more of what makes you a unique artist and not just rely on your photos, especially given the AI circumstances we're in. And speaking of commoditizing things and making human-made things cool again, I also want to focus on creating more in tactile mediums and making sure I focus on saying, hey, this is something that translates away from a screen. A human made this, a human designed this print, and now if you want it, you can purchase it. I'm predicting that in the next couple of years, the commodity of a human-made piece of art, something that has a story behind it, is going to be worth more in a world that's all digital. And same thing goes for photo books and creating a body of work. I'm working on my next book, and I'm really trying to put a story of the creation of that book into all the marketing I'm doing and into the message behind the product. Once again, giving people a reason why it exists. It's not just photos on a page. There's a story behind this. It's not just photos on a screen. There's a human behind this. And that's a little bit of a prediction for me. I don't know if it will come true, but I really believe that as things become more not human, things that are human will be more valuable in the future. And even if I'm wrong, it's nice to just think that way and try to be positive, because the opposite of it is pretty bleak and not great. So that's the third thing I'm doing, just trying to get back into physical, tactile mediums that make my photography more than just something on a screen. Now, the fourth thing that I'm considering, I haven't really done this, is leaning more into understanding AI and figuring out where the gaps are in AI. If you're someone who understands photography, you understand what makes a good photo, you have taste, you could use this to your advantage if things get really digital, if AI really begins to take over and photographers find themselves not having as many opportunities, which I don't think is the case yet, but in the worst case scenario, if we do get there, I think having a general understanding of how AI works and having the skill and taste and curation abilities necessary to create something better than the average person with AI could be important. I know that one's unpopular, but it's sort of the mentality of, if eventually you can't beat them, you might have to join them to survive and continue doing what you're doing. Now, the way I envision this process looking is, let's say Adobe has a tool coming out. I believe I saw it at Adobe Max. I can't remember if it's live or not, where you can actually, wait, it's not live. It was something that they showed in the sneak preview section of Adobe Max, but they have something they're working on where you can take a photo of like a shoe, for example, off of Google, and then you can put it into this vector essentially and design a scene around it and then create an AI image of a product. It was really scary because it was really good. I couldn't believe the images it was creating, but at the end of the day, the AI model still needs those inputs. So if you are a photographer who understands how to capture a shoe in the proper lighting to where it translates well to AI, you'll have a leg up over someone who's just grabbing those images off of Google. Once again, that one's going to be unpopular, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Now, the fifth thing that I want to talk about is another one that's going to be unpopular, but at the end of the day, we're all people, we have to survive. So if you're worried about AI, I think it's beneficial for everyone to try to build some type of moat for themselves. And what I mean by that is learning new skills and things that translate past the AI world. I already talked about how it's important to build an actual human presence and put humanity behind the things you're creating. creating, this is a skill that you can cultivate. So at the end of the day, when every photo you see online, or a lot of them, could be AI, if you have the ability to make a video and talk online and share your process, you can stand out because you've learned these new skills. You've built a moat around yourself. If you learn how to speak, you have the ability to maybe move into other niches and other topics online that won't be affected by AI as much as photography. Or if you learn more about graphic design, or you learn more about videography, you might be able to slow down the progression of AI impacting your work. Now, that one's going to be unpopular because at the end of the day, it means you're not a photographer. But once again, I'm just speaking to worst case scenario here. Like, if everything gets bad, I'm going to bank on the skills that I have around YouTube videos and around talking and being an actual person on camera. That skill for me, I believe to be one that's very important, and it can't be replaced by AI. So I definitely recommend other photographers try their best to learn new skills that are harder to replicate with an AI model. And here's the final thing that I want to talk about today, and it's arguably the most important. If you're someone like me who thinks that AI has great features, there's cool things about it, but you draw the line at copyright issues, you draw the line at generative creative AI, make that clear to the world. Support things made by humans. If a musician creates an album that you like, consider buying the album. If you see someone make a great graphic design and it's made by a person, support it, show love to it, speak out, be vocal, speak with your dollars and your support for actual humans. If a movie is created and that movie is seen by a lot of people in theaters, it is pushing back against the narrative that people don't want things made by people. It's important that as artists and just humans in general, if we don't like something, we speak with our support for the thing that we do want. It's not good to just vocally complain about AI. You have to go to the other side of the coin and support the things that you want to see more of. That right there is the key to all this. Support the thing that you actually want to see. And hopefully we can all make it through this current AI trend and get back to being photographers, and more importantly, get back to being people that make things. But that's the end of this video. It turned into a little bit of a rant, but if you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you are not yet, and I'll catch y'all for the next video, which will be back to the more normal style of content.